As the Ben Ish Hai Rabbi Shalom. The Gemara Masechet Brachot says, Daf Hey, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Jewish people 3 gifts, and each of them you only can get them, receive them through suffering. Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and Olam Haba. Torah has to have suffering, but it's a gift. Land of Israel through suffering, but it's a gift, and Olam Haba, the world to come. Now, these 3 gifts, why are they attached with suffering? Says the Ben Ish Hai, to test us to see why do we want it. If we want these gifts for the Shem Shamayim, then we are worthy of receiving them. Hashem knows our thoughts, and therefore, if we pass the test of pushing ourselves through the suffering, that shows we really want it. We really want for the sake of heaven. A person who studies Torah is because it's difficult, and he values what the Torah says. So therefore, Hashem will give it to him, and he'll gain understanding. So therefore, but if a person, he studies Torah in order to acquire knowledge, so then the test will be that if he's doing it for the right reason or not. And therefore, if he's doing it for the right reason, he'll be willing to suffer the most. A person who's doing it for kavod, okay, he'll be willing to suffer a little bit, but ultimately, he'll fall apart. He won't be able to study properly. In the land of Israel also, does a person want to live there for pleasure? Does a person want to live there for the mitzvot, for to be able to do shmitah, to do maaseh, for to have the holiness? Therefore, when the children of Israel, before they went to Bnei Israel, they went to Israel, they had to suffer in the desert. They went through a lot of suffering before they went there. And there were some people who said, give up, let's go back, enough, what do we need all this for? And therefore, it's to show that they only wanted the land of Israel for abundance, for pleasure, for to enjoy. Some people say, they think that you can take, you can survive in Israel. It's possible. And so the only problem is, if you think you can bring America with you, that's the problem. That's the problem. That's why you won't be able to enjoy it there. So therefore, a person has to know that Israel is acquired through suffering. And Olam Haba, a person only enjoys the reward that he for the Torah and the mitzvot that he's performed, but usually suffering makes you do less. So if a person tries to accomplish mitzvot for the sake of reward, so then he won't be able to produce, because he's gonna not like the suffering. He's gonna say, what is this? I want to gain as much Olam Haba as I can, and all the suffering is blocking me. But if a person's mitzvah, he does it for the mitzvah, he says, okay, if I do a lot, I do a little, it doesn't make a difference. As long as I'm trying, I'm doing the will of Hashem, and even though I can't do it as fast as I would wish, I'm going through a lot of suffering, he says it's fine. He'll be willing to accept it. Therefore, all these three things are given through suffering. Okay, good. So it says in the Pasuk in Tehillim, it says in chapter 55, those who have no exchanges and feared not God. What does this mean? Those who have no exchanges and they don't fear God. It means, the Gemara Pesachim says that each person has exchanges, right? Sometimes, Chas Shalom, if you do a sin, let's say the king said something and you don't do what he said. A lot of times, off with your head. They used to kill people not for listening, just for not listening to the king. So Hashem doesn't do that. Hashem gives exchanges. What's the Hashem's exchange? The Gemara says a person, let's say, he became rich through his ox, so Hashem could take away his ox. A person has a sheep, will take away his sheep. The orphan has only an egg, Hashem will take away his egg. And the widow only has a chicken, a hen, so take away her hen. So you see that the person suffers a loss, kapara avono, through his money, that's his kapara. So therefore, when you have, right, an exchange, when you're going to go and do it, when you're going to have fear of God, you're going to realize that something happens to you, wow, kapara avonot, I have to change my ways, I have to stop. But the person who really should be scared is the guy who's wicked, and he doesn't realize when Hashem hurts him, he's doing kapara avonot, he gets upset, why did Hashem do this to me? What's wrong with him? And he gets claims against Hashem. Such a person, he has no exchanges. For him, he doesn't look at it as a kapara avonot. For him, who has no exchanges? One who has no fear of God. The one who doesn't realize that Hashem is punishing him because of the sins he did. So therefore, we should give benefit of the doubt to who? Benefit of the doubt to me that I'm righteous, or benefit of the doubt to Hashem that He's the one who's doing the right thing. Hashem is doing the right thing, and you have to realize Hashem did you a chesed. Hashem did you a kindness, that He's doing kapara avonot better on my stuff than on my body. The Gemara Masechet Brachot says that if a person is going through suffering, what should he do? He should go and search his deeds, do cheshbon nefesh. And if he searched and he didn't find, did he do any sin? He must search and realize maybe he did insufficient Torah study. He did bitul Torah. Maybe that's why you have suffering, right? And even then, if you didn't find any time that you wasted from learning Torah, you should know it's Yisurin Sha'ava. It's a suffering of love. Hashem is making you suffer here, so you don't have to suffer in Gehenna. So therefore, we know Bitul Torah is one of the greatest sins, because the person who studies Torah is the greatest sin in the greatest mitzvah in the Torah. Talmud Torah keneged kulam. So therefore, Bitul Torah, neglecting Torah, or insufficient Torah study, saying you learned a little bit and saying, oh, that's enough, but really you could learn more, that's also one of the biggest sins in the Torah. So now the question is, let's say a person, he checked his sins, he didn't do any sins. Now the Gemara says, check if he wasted time from learning Torah. So a guy, he did, and he didn't find any time that he didn't learn Torah. How could it be that a person didn't find time that he could have learned Torah? He says, for example, the Rishon Yochai says that a person is, the Gemara says, Rishma and Rabbi Shimon have an argument, right? Rishon Yochai says you should learn Torah all day. What about Parnasa? It's okay, someone else will do it for you, someone else will support you. Rishma says, no. Rishma says you have to work and you have to learn, and you try to do both. And the Gemara says many tried like Rishon Yochai, they failed. Many tried like Rishma, and they worked and they learned and they were successful. So therefore you have to calculate how many hours a day you need to work in order for it to have enough to live. For some people, 2 hours, some people 4, some people 9, some people 8, whatever it is, right? And sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes in this calculation, says the Ben Ish Hai, people make mistakes. You know, do you have to have your store open from the morning till the evening? Not necessarily. You know, there's people who have a store, they'll be open from 10 to 7, and only from 12 to 2, customers came, they made all the money for the day, and the rest of the day was nothing, waste of time, right? So the Ben Ish Hai says, look, this guy miscalculated. He only needed those 2 hours to make parnasa, and he's open for so long. For what? It's a waste of time. You know, the Pele Yoet says there used to be that people who had bracha in their business when they used to bring books to work. When they used to bring books and there was nothing going on in the store, they used to open, they used to read, at least learn while nothing was happening. When they stopped bringing books, that's when they lost bracha. Now what people do, they sit on the phone, they schmooze, coffee, schmuffy, walk around, go here, go there, call people while they're bored, hey, how are you? All this stuff, and they're wasting their time. They could have learned Torah. He says, and since people make this calculation, and then when the Gemara says what? The Gemara says, oh, the guy said, oh, I checked, and I didn't make any miscalculation in Torah study. I did enough Torah study. And then he thinks that he's getting a suffering of love. No, a person has to be careful with this calculation, to not make a miscalculation, to maybe go to work too early, or come home from work too late, and then what? And then it could be that he has to change. He has to stop the suffering because he's not learning enough Torah, and he continues to do it without noticing. So therefore, a person has to ask himself, do I learn Torah in the morning? Do I learn Torah in the evening? Do I go to work too early? Do I stay at work too late? If you're a business owner, so that's a big calculation you have to do. Okay, we'll do one more. Says the Midrash in Shir Hashim Rabbah. It says that the Bnei Yisrael said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? By you afflicting me, you have become my beloved. Right? We know the Shir Hashim talks about how Hashem and Am Yisrael, they're like a husband and a wife. So he says, even though you hurt me, Hashem, you become my beloved. How is that? What does that mean? Usually a person gets hurt, you get upset at them. So this is the Ben Ish Hai, there's a mitzvah, Hashavat Aveda. What's a mitzvah, Hashavat Aveda? You have to return the lost object to the person that it belongs to. However, the Gemara Masechet Betzia says, if he's a distinguished person, he's a person who's mechubad, he's a very distinguished person in the community. So if he finds a lost cow and it's not proper for him to walk around with a cow asking who this belongs to, it's beneath his kavod. It's not proper for him. So the Gemara says he's exempt. He doesn't have to do Hashavat Aveda. But if he hits it one time to go home, he starts getting involved in the mitzvah. Now he has to automatically continue and finish the mitzvah, take it all the way home. So says the Ben Ish Hai, we can learn a lesson from this. He says when a person goes off the derech and he doesn't do Hashem's will, it's like he's lost. He's like a lost object. His neshama is lost. So now, when Hashem, he's like the distinguished person. He's Adam Mechubad, right? He doesn't have to go out of his way to bring your soul back. He doesn't have to go and chase you and bring you back the lost object. However, what's the halacha? If you smack the cow one time, then he has to bring it back, right? Hashem fulfills his own Torah, says the Ben Ish Hai. So therefore, when Hashem smacks you a little bit, he gives you a little bit of suffering, Yisurin. So now the halacha says that he has to bring you back. Now he has to make you do teshuvah. If he didn't smack you, so he's not obligated to bring you back. But now that he smacked you, so then he has to bring you back. So that's what the pasuk says. By you afflicting me, you have become my beloved. Because you hurt me, now you're obligated, and you brought me back my soul. And the guy who brings back the cow, what does he do? Oh, wow, you brought back my cow. You're my friend. Wow, you're a good guy. And he becomes close to him. Says the same thing. That's how we have to feel with Hashem. When Hashem smacks us, you have to realize, if Hashem didn't care about us, He would let us go. From the fact that He smacked us and He brings us back, He's doing us the biggest favor. He loves us. Baruch Adonai Olam.